What if the history we know was just a smokescreen, hiding a much older and more terrifying truth? Imagine a time when creation itself was violated, where beings from another plane mingled with humanity, generating a brood of giants who rewrote the laws of nature and morality. This is not a distant myth, but an ancient record of an era of chaos and corruption that culminated in a cataclysmic event. Prepare to unravel the secrets of a pre-diluvian world, where the line between the divine and the monstrous dissolved, and Earth became a stage for a biological and spiritual war. For centuries, the narrative of the Great Flood has been told as a story of divine judgment and redemption, focusing on the figure of Noah and the Ark. But what happened in the nearly 2 millennia that preceded this catastrophe? The Bible in Genesis 6 and apocryphal texts such as the Book of Enoch offer a glimpse into a period of darkness and wonder where Earth became a battleground for celestial and earthly forces. We are talking about a civilization that, in its pursuit of knowledge and power, crossed forbidden boundaries, altering the very essence of life and society. This video will delve into the depths of that forgotten era, exploring the rise of the Nephilim, the corruption of humanity, and the genetic manipulation that transformed the world into a nightmare, culminating in the most drastic decision ever made to preserve creation. The narrative of humanity is often idealized, but the truth is that even in its earliest days, the seed of corruption was already planted. Genesis 4 introduces us to the lineage of Cain, a civilization that, although technologically advanced for its time, was intrinsically linked to violence and self-sufficiency. Cain built the first city, Enoch, a place that became a melting pot of innovation and depravity. There, Tubal-Cain forged metals, creating tools and weapons that would transform warfare into an industrialized art. Jubal, in turn, created complex instruments, and the music, which should have uplifted the spirit, became a constant noise, a backdrop for parties that lasted for days, hypnotic rhythms that extinguished consciousness and reflection. It was a society that leaped from the Stone Age to advanced metallurgy in a single generation, but without the moral maturity to handle such power. In this scenario of material progress and spiritual decay, the true catalyst for catastrophe manifested itself. It did not come from the earth, but from heaven. Ancient texts, such as the Book of Enoch, describe the descent of the Watchers, celestial beings who, seduced by the beauty of the daughters of men, abandoned their post and descended to earth. They were not mere observers, they were instructors, bearers of forbidden knowledge that would hasten humanity's downfall. Azazel taught the art of war, the making of swords and shields, transforming conflicts into massacres. He also revealed secrets of beautification, such as the use of antimony to make up the eyes, introducing a culture of vanity and superficiality that shifted the focus from the inner self to the outer self. Shemiaza, another leader of the Watchers, introduced sorcery and enchantments, the use of substances to alter consciousness and open mental doors. What we would now call pharmacopoeia barakel taught astrology, diverting worship from the creator to creation, causing people to guide their lives by the stars instead of the divine voice. This influx of forbidden knowledge, delivered all at once, was like giving a nuclear reactor to a child. The technical capacity was there, but the wisdom and ethics to use it were absent. Earth became an open-air laboratory where technology and magic mixed in dangerous ways, preparing the ground for the deepest corruption. The true catastrophe, however, was not merely the introduction of forbidden knowledge, but the violation of the most fundamental boundaries of creation. Genesis 6:2 is chillingly direct. The sons of God came, and the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves from all whom they chose. This was not a consensual union or a traditional marriage. It was a takeover, an act of domination that ignored human will. Families watched helplessly as their daughters were taken away by these celestial beings, whose appearances and powers were undeniable. No earthly force could resist them. The result of these unholy unions was a biological aberration. The Nephilim, what grew in the women's wombs, was not human. Babies were born about 1 meter long, a completely new genetic pattern. Childbirth was an indescribable torment. Many mothers did not survive, and the midwives immediately recognized that this was not a normal child. The growth of these hybrids was frighteningly accelerated. At only 6 months old, they were already walking, By the age of 2, they possessed the strength of an athletic adult, breaking objects and unintentionally hurting other children simply because they had no awareness of their own physical power. At 5 years old, they were already the size of a human adult, and at 10 they exceeded 3 meters. In adulthood, they could reach 4 meters or more, with some ancient accounts suggesting even larger proportions. They were biological titans, capable of uprooting young trees with their bare hands, lifting stones that dozens of men couldn't move, and killing wild animals effortlessly. But the real threat lay not only in their colossal physical strength. What was most disturbing was their mind. They learned quickly, understood complex concepts, but were devoid of empathy. The Book of Enoch describes them as beings who devoured the labor of men, consuming crops, herds, and game, seeing humans not as equals, but as resources to be exploited. By the age of 10, many had already committed acts of extreme violence, driven by impulse, anger, or morbid curiosity. Over time, these colossal hybrids, the Nephilim, consolidated their power, no longer content to be merely children. They aspired to be kings. Imagine a ruler 4 meters tall, with immeasurable strength and an appetite that surpassed that of 100 men. His word was absolute law. There were no courts, no police, no form of justice that could oppose his will. Anyone who dared to question him simply disappeared. Genesis calls them men of renown, in Hebrew Anshe Hashem, celebrated and feared figures who built palaces of rough stone and insurmountable walls on the fertile plains. They demanded heavy tributes, grain, animals, gold, and invariably women. Colossal statues were erected in their honor, and temples where sacrifices took place daily became part of the landscape. The social hierarchy was brutally simple. Nephilim at the top, humans at the bottom, serving as labor, resources, and eventually, food. Hunger became a growing logistical problem. How to feed a population of giants with insatiable appetites? The Book of Enoch describes the escalation of horror. First, they consumed all agricultural produce, then the herds, and when these resources were exhausted, they began to look for humans themselves. Ancient Jewish traditions explicitly mention the development of an appetite for human flesh and blood. Cannibalism was not a secret act. It became a public ritual, with altars where people were sacrificed before terrified crowds. Children grew up witnessing this barbarity, learning that human life had no value. Genesis 6:11 describes the earth as chamas, a Hebrew word that evokes unjust violence, raw oppression, and unrestrained brutality. Murders were daily occurrences, bodies lay in the streets, and empathy had evaporated. The biblical statement that every imagination of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil continually, Genesis 6:5, did not refer to a moment of anger or an occasional slip, but to a constant state of wickedness, a psychopathic society operating 24 hours a day. While the Nephilim reigned through terror, their parents, the Watchers, continued to spread forbidden secrets, transforming the world into a supernatural war zone. The technical capability was there, but the moral maturity to use it had been completely annihilated. While human society disintegrated under the yoke of the Nephilim and the forbidden technology of the Watchers, the earth itself groaned under an even deeper corruption. Genesis 6:12 states that all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. This was not a metaphor for human morality. It was a literal description of an unprecedented biological violation. Extra-biblical texts, such as the Book of Jasher and the Book of Jubilees, detail the mixing of species, the genetic manipulation that broke the barriers of divine creation. Centaurs, minotaurs, chimeras, sphinxes, these mythological figures, which we now consider fantasy, may have actually been traumatic memories of an era where genetic engineering got out of control, creating a spectacle of biological horrors. God had established that each being would reproduce according to its kind, a safety barrier in the genetic code. The Watchers and their descendants, the Nephilim, ignored this fundamental law. The result was a collapsing ecosystem, teeming with unstable creatures, predators that nature could not sustain, animals in constant pain, trapped between two incompatible natures. The food chain broke down, and the world became an open-air laboratory, without ethics, without restraint. Life on Earth was so contaminated, so irreversibly altered, that the only solution to preserve the original creation was a complete reset. The flood, from this perspective, was not an act of blind rage, but a cosmic chemotherapy, a surgical intervention to eradicate the biological and moral cancer that was consuming the planet. And then, while blood flowed through the gutters of the stone cities and chimeras roamed the forests, the sky itself began to change. The layer of vapor that had protected the Earth, maintaining a uniform tropical climate for millennia, began to fail. For the first time, the chill of cold was felt. The breath condensed in the air. Dark, dense clouds gathered, blocking the diffuse light. Thunder rumbled, a new and terrifying sound, and then the first drop. Genesis 7:11 describes the exact moment. On that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of heaven were opened. It wasn't just rain, it was a double attack. Underground reservoirs of water under high pressure exploded, tectonic plates split. Jets of boiling water gushed from the Earth's crust as the sky collapsed. The water rose meters in a matter of minutes, engulfing cities and turning walls into deadly traps. Giants tried to climb mountains, but the water kept rising for 40 days and 40 nights, and then months, until it covered everything. Genesis 7:20 states that the waters prevailed 15 cubits, about 7 meters, above the highest mountains. There was no escape, not for the strongest, not for the smartest, not even for those with all the technology of the fallen angels. In the midst of this absolute chaos, a single wooden boat, a strange rectangular box built by an old man named Noah, whom everyone had ridiculed for decades, began to float 8 people, 8 out of the entire world population, while the most advanced, violent, and genetically modified civilization in history drowned in the mud. The history of the antediluvian world is not merely an ancient tale. It is a dark mirror reflecting the depths of human nature and the consequences of transgression. The rise of the Nephilim, the biological and moral corruption, and the cataclysm that followed serve as a timeless warning. The flood was not the end, but a new beginning, proof that even in the face of total destruction, life finds a way to persist. But the most disturbing lesson is that the seed of corruption that led to that end still resides within us. The technologies that fascinate us, the pursuit of power that consumes us, the temptation to redefine the limits of life, all of this echoes the mistakes of a forgotten era. The question is not whether a new reset will come, but rather whether humanity has learned anything from the past. Are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes, or are we capable of forging a different future? If this exploration of the forbidden past has made you question reality and inspired you to seek more, leave a like to support our work. Share this video with those who dare to look into the shadows of history. And to continue uncovering the deepest mysteries and most disturbing truths, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. The truth, however dark it may be, always deserves to be revealed.